And she asked me, what are pajamas? And I had to explain to her that you have something to change into at night that are nice and cozy and help you to dream and you feel so comfortable. And as I was saying all of this to her, my mind was exploding because I had a mom that tucked me and my sister and brothers in, and it was a beautiful bedtime ritual that I thought most, if not all, kids had. And I learned so much in her question, from her question, and in my reaction.
Hmm.
And one thing led to another. That mission, that purpose grew in me, and I found myself really in.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of More Clients. We're going to take a little detour today with today's guest, whose journey has taken her from marketing VP in the television business in New York City to a little girl's question in a homeless shelter to Oprah to boardrooms and stages across America. Genevieve is a TEDx speaker, 7 times award-winning Amazon best-selling author, founder of the Pajama Program, and creator of Purpose ASA Workflow Training Program. Following 20 years as an executive director, she passed the ED baton, and today Genevieve teaches and speaks on the power and purpose of human connection, how to be the voice that moves the world, the 4 truths that you need to know, and the 2 words they don't teach you in leadership school. Genevieve has been interviewed on many local and national media, including Oprah, Hallmark's Home, Family, The Huckabee Show, Today, GMA, The Early Show, CNN, Fox and Friends, Home Magazine, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Glamour, Self, and Parenting magazines, to name just a few. She rang the NASDAQ stock market opening bell in 2016. Genevieve is the graduate of Fordham University and lives in Irvington, New York, with her husband, Demo Di Martil. And if you can find them, check out the nearest beach. Okay. That was a mouthful, Genevieve, but welcome. It's great to have
You
you.
read it
Great
all.
to have you here.
Thank you, Tim. I didn't have to read it all, but thank you.
No, that's all good.
Welcome.
It's there. There's a lot of stuff going on, and you've definitely sort of tapped the stage and presentation formula, which we're going to explore a bit there. But firstly, I want to pick out your book that you've got on your background there. That's something that our watchers on YouTube can see, but our listeners certainly can't. I believe it says Purpose, Passion, and
Pajamas.
Pajamas. Tell me
Right.
about that.
Yes. Well, I wrote that because so many people had asked how I jumped off the corporate ladder 25 years ago when it wasn't that popular, because I met a little girl who changed everything with a simple question that was unexpected and just blew my mind. And I learned a lot. I went through a lot of dark days and soul searching and financial upheaval because I didn't have a plan, but I just felt so strongly that this was it. This was my purpose. This
Hmm.
is what really made everything brighter. And it's that journey of coming from one place that you think is going to be the rest of your life to another very different place. And it has to do with how and why I founded the national organization called Pajama Program after being in the TV world for many years.
Okay, tell me more about that. All right. So, what was that bit of advice when you met that young girl?
Well, for some strange reason, in the middle of those 12 years of working in TV, I thought I had everything. That's all I wanted to ever be, was a TV executive. And one day I heard a voice ask me, if this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough? And that's when I was really perplexed because I thought I had what I wanted, but there was that nagging question all of a sudden. And I went to volunteer in a homeless shelter to read to the children. And I felt so attached to them. And when I followed to see where they're going to sleep at night, they were sleeping on cots and futons, huddled together, and in the same clothes that they'd been wearing for days, clothes that were dirty and tight. And a lot of them were crying. They were so afraid. It had been taken from people who were supposed to care for them, who were not caring for them,
Mm.
and now to this strange shelter. And I brought pajamas
Which
because that
hardly
was
seems like an improvement, right? It's like
yes.
I've come out
And I
of
brought
one
right.
terrible environment to another one where like everything doesn't feel safe and secure. And
Yes. Yes. And I brought pajamas. And a little girl asked me, what are pajamas? And I had to explain to her that you have something to change into at night that are nice and cozy and help you to dream and you feel so comfortable. And as I was saying all of this to her, my mind was exploding because I had a mom that tucked me and my sister and brothers in, and it was a beautiful bedtime ritual that I thought most, if not all, kids had. And I learned so much in her question, from her question, and in my reaction. And then a little bit that the caretakers there could tell me that I couldn't sleep myself that night. I had to do something. And one thing led to another. That mission, that purpose grew in me. And I found myself really in a predicament.
Yeah, I can imagine. We kind of, I mean, I remember my transition out of corporate, probably also, well, it's 15 years for me now. And I had run a business on the side. And one of the reasons I switched was to give my business more oxygen than I was able to do in lunch breaks and, before and after work and random sneaky meeting here and there. We do get into this position where I think on the corporate ladder, we only ever move to another thing when it's secure, right? We have this sort of what's this false sense of safety. No, employment laws in the US are a little bit different from here in Australia, where you can't just be kicked out generally, but you're only ever moving up, right? It might be slowly, but you're only ever moving up, and you might be jumping from company to company to move up a little bit faster. But you don't quit. It's not a thing that you do in corporate. You don't go, had enough of this. You go and find something else and got out, and you sit there, and then you finish up on the Friday at one company and then company B the following Monday.
Right.
And sometimes it's you're doing the same job, particularly.
And you think about it for a long time, right?
You think about it for ages. Right? And the idea of kind of going, I'm going to do something else entirely is almost the antithesis of contemporary thinking. People look at you strangely and go, what? It doesn't compute.
Right.
Starting to speak another language about going, hang on, I'm going to work with children. What? Right. But you're also right. I think we've got to take a look at what serves us. And I know last 6 months for me have been quite tough personally. I separated from my wife 12 months ago after 25 years. And a good friend of mine challenged me to say, well, let's look at what serves you. What behaviors, what things, what relationships serving you, and decide whether you want to keep them or not. And it's a tough thing to do, right? Because unless we can sort of take out and go, does this serve me? Exactly that question that little girl asked you. If you were to do this for the rest of your life, the next 30 years, would you find passion in that? And it's almost like suddenly like, ding, light bulb moment.
Right. Well, I found that question, if this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough? That came from me inside. I didn't know where it came from. And then when I met her shortly after, and she asked me, what are pajamas? That was almost like the answer to that inner question. If this is the next 30 years, is this enough? So one question and the second question were both out of the blue, but so connected. You couldn't have written a play better. You couldn't have written or designed that. At least not a human could have.
Hey, look, anyone listening to this who's in the movie sector, I think there might be a good story out of this. Let's put a movie together. Yeah. How quickly from that point did you decide to make the transition?
Well, I decided within a few months, but it took me about a year, almost a year, to get up the courage. And that year was pretty messy. It was fighting with myself. It was not being true to myself. It was spending everything I had and getting into debt and keeping it all a secret. I was juggling the balls. I was trying to figure it out. I was afraid to tell anyone because, like you were saying, even here in America, people thought I was crazy. My first girlfriend I told, she thought I was crazy. And I knew it was going to be hard to tell her what I was thinking because it sounds ridiculous, right? I'm going to give up my 12 years. I'm going to give up my corporate job. I have a mortgage, but listen, I'm going to go give pajamas to children every day. It sounded crazy to me. And of course, it sounded crazy to her. And I knew that I was in for a lot of scrutiny, probably losing friends, and all that did happen, and I had to recover.
Tell me about the relationship with your partner through this period.
Well, I wasn't with him until I had to tell him, listen, I know you think I'm going to stay in TV, but I really feel that this little girl who asked me what pajamas are is where I have to go, and I have to give pajamas to children for every day, and I have to quit my job. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills or my mortgage. There, I said it. because I knew I had to say it.
Yeah.
And
And then, of course, he reached over and closed his mouth.
he looked at me and he said, I think you should go for it. And that was such a stark contrast to what my girlfriend had said months before, because I hadn't talked to anybody since she said that, and just shocked me. And I had to say it to him because I didn't want to lead him on. And when he said that, I felt like somebody lifted this massive burden off my shoulders. And even though he couldn't financially afford to carry me, he understood and he allowed me time to figure it out.
It's pretty amazing to have someone in your life like that.
Yeah, I did not expect it.
Often quite rare to find someone who will support you.
Not that it was easy, Tim. I caused a lot of financial struggle. And of course, when you're doing something that's brand new, you're 24 hours in and you're all in and you don't have time for anybody else. And I did that. I was guilty of all of that.
Tell me how this has changed your views on leadership. We talked about that you've written a book, the 2 words they don't teach you in leadership school.
Yeah. Well, those 2 words are love and moxie. And I think leaders need both. I think we had bosses. I had bosses. When I started Pajama Program, I learned how to be a leader. And I think that's where we are today. We're looking for leaders. We are gravitating toward inspiring leaders, leaders who we sit at a table and leaders listen, sometimes more than they talk. And bosses didn't do that. They handed out the assignments and you said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And you went and did your job and reported back and hopefully, weren't shaking in your boots. Now it's not that way. And I had to learn how cooperation and listening and celebration and camaraderie and asking how everyone's doing was love, and that was more natural to me all of a sudden than handing out an assignment and getting the job done. I cared, and that little girl opened that up, and it seemed to me that that was the answer to everything, whether you are selling a widget or you are servicing people in $1 million business. It comes down to that. It comes down to love, and it comes down to human connection and together being bold. That moxie, just got to bring it up from somewhere when you've got to make those tough decisions and you want to make a bold vision a reality. Everybody's got to fuel off that moxie.
Is that more the opportunity to inspire people to achieve rather than forcing them to? Because I know certainly old school companies, I have worked in them myself in project management, where you have a very authoritarian leadership style, which is what you're describing. I know TV is quite dominated by that leadership style.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you, as you said, survive on love and moxie?
Well, I think when there has to be a decision made, the bottom line falls to the leader. But that leader has many choices on how to include and how to embrace what the effects will be on his team, on the impact for those the team serves. And that leader is coming from his or her heart. And that's the inspirational part. It doesn't always mean that everyone's prayers are answered and everyone is going to be 100% on board. But it does mean that you trust that your leader has taken a look at everything and is really looking for the best solution to what might be a complicated issue.
In your organization, what impact have you seen by leading in that style?
Well, there wasn't any way else to lead. We were in it because we all felt love. Not only love for that little girl, but we discovered that we were being served. And I think when you're on purpose, whether you're in a company making money publicly or privately, or you're in a nonprofit, or you're part of a membership group, if it fills you up, that is love. You feel love for the people that you're working with who are helping to fill that hole in you and bring you more to life. And I think by doing that, those people were attracted to what we were doing and wanted to share a part of themselves, which is the best way for any team member to feel in any business, that they want to give, that they're showing up to give a piece of themselves back to their team members and back to the end result, and to make an impact personally on what they're doing. And the only way you can do that is if you feel connected to the leader, if you're inspired by your leader's vision, if you see that impact, how positive it is, and for people not only now but in the future, if you feel like you're making a difference in people's lives, then that's about love and connection and legacy and forever. And I think in my experience, we all were feeling more whole, if I can put it that way.
I have this theory I'd like to share with you and get your feedback on. As a leader, we can inspire people. We can't motivate people. I think a lot of leadership talks about motivate your team, right? And they'll do better. I don't believe that we can motivate people. I do believe that we can inspire them to motivate themselves by being on purpose. Thoughts on that?
I agree 100%. I think we all want to be inspired, and we all want to inspire. And if we feel like we're making a difference by inspiring others, then that's probably because someone has inspired us. So I think there's nothing else to say. You said it perfectly.
Well, there we go. There we go. Sometimes I'm wise, sometimes.
This is one of those times.
Let's talk marketing. As a not-for-profit, we still have to make money, right? Because without that, we can't deliver the works that our organization does. How do you approach the sponsorship conversation? Because you've got two customers, right? It's one customer who's giving you money either through grants and funding, and the other one is we've got corporate and private sponsors who are going to give you some cash so that you can do the work that you do for children. What's your approach?
Well, for the first 20 years, I founded it, and for the first 20 years, I ran the organization as executive director. Just before COVID, I passed the baton so that I could write and speak about the story and the human connection, the power of purpose, and how everything is about love. So I can talk about the first 20 years when we were trying to get off the ground. And yeah, and Jamie, who's running it now, she's been there 4 years. So, well, I still feel that everything was emotional to me. I never got over, to this day, the emotion of that little girl, how she made me feel, her question, how it made other people feel, and how it felt to have others, strangers, want to help, and how I felt watching them help with love, serving children in their city, in their town, under the name Pajama Program that came to me on the subway one day. And it was all emotional. So every time I approached an individual or a grantor, I felt I wanted to make that personal connection. Now, you can do it easily with an individual because there are many things that resonate with other people concerning children. Their parents, their grandparents, they tuck their children in at night, they feed their children, they care for their children. So it was beautiful to see the response. Now, not everybody responded because everybody has something that fills their heart. Animals. Sometimes they have a family member who's ill and they take on working there. And that's wonderful. I was always just so grateful that everybody I met did some good. So if it was for our organization and the children, it was personal between me and them in our discussion from day one. Even with grants, I would look for the grants that I knew I could write something personal about. For instance, I don't know if you know what Carvel is. It's an ice cream shop.
Okay.
And growing up, we were middle class. My father was the only one working in the family. My mom stayed with us, so money was tight, but it was a treat when my father would announce to all of us, 4 kids and my mom, who wants Carvel? Now, all we could get was a large cone with sprinkles. We couldn't get a sundae, we couldn't get a float, nothing extravagant, a simple large cone with sprinkles. And we were thrilled. We'd pile in the car, we'd go, and it was a big deal. So I found out Carvel gave grants, and I wrote them a letter with that story. And I said, you are such a force in our neighborhood and in my family. So I made it personal, and they gave us grants for many, many years. And I finally got to meet them, and it was like old home week. And I looked for that personal connection, which is love, in every grant I wrote. And even when I hired a grant writer, I quickly unhired her because for me, it wasn't about the numbers and it wasn't about the things that were tangible. it was about what we were giving those children. It turns out it wasn't the material of the pajamas, it was love. It was safety. It was the dream that they could have someone care about them even if they couldn't see them. That invisible hug they felt from a stranger when the box of pajamas came to their shelter or their group home or their foster home. So I always, in my work today, I look for personal ways that say, I love you, I care, and I want you to know that and feel that.
It's an interesting sort of thought. I am reminded of a story I heard years ago about, and I don't know if it's a real story or not, but it was about a guy who decided that his passion was to drive his old Mustang from Alaska to the tip of South America, and whenever he'd stop and the car would break down, he would just share this story about his life's dream and how easily people connected with that story, right? Because it is delivered with such passion and such emotion that this is my life's purpose. And it's a really attractive, thing. And I think you've picked up a really interesting point there inadvertently, and it works very much for the not-for-profit space, where you are sharing a very purpose-driven organization with people and expressing it in a way that this is our purpose. We would love your support to achieve this purpose. And if you find the right people, they'll definitely connect with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it is something that we miss in our corporate life, or our business life. We tend to revolve too much to facts and figures and numbers, and we can increase your revenue by X, or we can decrease your costs by Y, or save you this much time, rather than saying, hey, our purpose is this, and we would love
You
to
could
work
feel
with you.
really good working with us.
You'll feel really great working us. Do you think in the business sector, and having been in business, that the same rule applies, or do you need a mix of both love and moxie and purpose driven, as well as the raw facts and figures and the business fundamentals?
Right. I think above all, it's about love. Now, I think that I had one boss that was more about love, if I looked back. And it wasn't that it has nothing to do with saying I love you or hugging and kissing. Of course, it's not that, but it's giving the team freedom to say, I have an idea. It's being asked, what do you think? In a bad situation when things are failing, asking your team, what do you think? I'm stuck. I don't know what to do, which is a big thing for a leader, for a boss to say. Now, leaders are a little more open to saying, help, team, I need you.
Yeah.
But I do think it comes down to the respect and the trust that you have for your team. And I think that it all boils down to and comes back to love. And that's that's a word that people think is romantic and mushy, especially the old-fashioned bosses. But I think people are coming around to it now.
Yeah, I would agree. I know it's something that I try to instill in my leadership style with my team, is that I don't have all the answers. I've got many of them, right?
Mhm.
Mostly by virtue of having been in the space for a bit longer, but I don't have every answer. And I
Right.
hire my team to fill skills gaps that I don't have, as we should do.
Right.
And we have this, I mean, I have a picture in my mind. I quite often sort of ruminate on these things in a visual context. And I think it's a bit like an old school pirate ship. I might be the captain, the owner of the ship, but I'm voted here, and we have a collective responsibility to sail the bloody thing,
That's the word, collective.
right? Because if the ship goes down, we all drown.
Right. Right.
All right, we'll finish the show up, Genevieve, with a quick fire, and I'm going to throw a bunch of random questions at you and see how you go. I know you have 3 hats on your wall. Right, one's a Harvard, one's Fordham, and
Boredom.
the one is your purple It's About Love hat. Right.
Yes.
Tell me why you
Right.
picked up. Tell me why you grabbed the It's About Love hat, but not the others.
Because it's about time. I think we're looking for it everywhere.
Yep.
And it starts at the top.
We want more connectivity. Lead with purpose.
Yes.
What's your approach to networking?
Networking, I love it. I can talk to anybody. I can ask a lot of questions and I hope to find their humanness, everybody's humanness, everybody's emotion. I want to find a topic that we share that's not typically, what do you do for a living? Where do you live? How long have you been a member of this organization? I want to find out if they just got a puppy, or I want to find out how many kids they have and all the fun stuff about it and tell them I don't have kids. So please tell me a couple of funny things your kids did this week. Okay.
You've obviously quite extroverted. Any tip for someone who's not so extroverted in terms of being able to break into a conversation?
I would ask them who in your life has had the biggest impact on you? Because I think we all can answer that rather quickly. Whether if it's a leader, if it's our mom, if it's our best friend, if it's our husband or wife. So I think that most people have an answer. And I also think that it's a question most strangers don't ask. And I think it's personal enough to connect people and not too personal that people don't want to share.
Yeah. It's almost pivoting the question from what do you do, which seems the default. What is it you do, Genevieve? Like, so, and actually going, well, why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Well, no one's ever asked me that. It does actually break the ice far more effectively.
Do you want to tell me who has impacted you the most?
Oh, lots of people. The most. I don't know about the most, but I would say lots of people have impacted me. I think my grandfather was one of those people as impacted. Both of my grandfathers.
Wow, that's a great answer. See, that starts a conversation because I want to know why. And that's
Vastly different men. My mother's father was a highly respected diplomat
wow.
and very poised. Very poised, always had this sort of ability to make people feel at ease. And my other grandfather, incredibly gruff, I think is probably, in retrospect, suffered from a great deal of PTSD following World War II,
Wow.
and was always very gruff and short, and ultimately died from emphysema-related dementia, which was very tough towards the end. So
Wow.
I used to hide I used to steal his cigarettes and replace them with the chocolate cigarettes because I didn't
See,
like him smoking.
wow, that's beautiful. That's funny. That's poignant.
Hmm.
That's rare. That's a great answer.
What's your biggest failure, and what have you learned from that experience?
Oh, my biggest failure. Which one? Which one? I think getting into financial debt when I didn't because I didn't plan pajama program, I didn't think about all of that. I had a mortgage and I didn't use any part of my head. I was 100% heart. Now,
You're in. It's
it
like,
worked out, but
we're just
a
gonna
lot of
launch this
misery.
thing and see what happens.
Yep, that was it. That was it. And I wasn't a saver, still not a saver. So I didn't have that sense. And I just trusted some magic would happen. I didn't know what, but that was and I tell people it can be done that way. People can do it that way. I jumped before I looked, but there's probably a better way and still to make the impact.
Speaking is a pretty powerful means of sharing your message with the world, as is being an author, but speaking probably even more so. What tip would you have for someone who is maybe trying to break into the speaking space?
Well, you won't be surprised. Put your heart out there. You have to connect with your audience. You have to be personal. You have to tell stories that someone else might say, you might not want to tell a personal story. Tell a story. Tell something vulnerable that happened. Tell a mistake you made. Tell how somebody rescued you from something, from yourself. Try to connect and be emotional. And I cry a lot on stage because I remember that little girl and I tell the stories sometimes, and sometimes I feel the tears welling up and I let them go, and you could hear a pin drop. I learned because I never wanted to be in that vulnerable position that that's what connects us.
What's one initiative on your whiteboard that wasn't there at the start of the year?
Oh, good question. I'm looking at it actually.
You've actually got a
Um,
whiteboard. Fantastic.
yeah, I have a vision. I call it a vision board. Yeah, I do. Well, I'd like to do more speaking that is accompanied by small workshops with the same audience. Most of the time I speak and leave. I do have something coming up like that, but I'd like to do that because I'd like to get to know the group in small groups. So I can speak and talk about something, but I'd like to get them in smaller groups and find out what's going on with them that I might be able to help brainstorm if there's an issue or talk out. So I like the smaller groups following a big group.
Yeah, let's do this one to finish up. If you had 10 times the marketing budget that you have now, where would you spend it?
10 times the budget. I love to mentor. And I put on two summits that I paid for. and I haven't been able to do that again. So I'd like to do that. And I always say, I'll do another Find Your Purpose. I call it Find Your Pajamas. On the back of this, see, Find Your Pajamas, Find Your Purpose. And I
Yeah.
did 2 of those summits, and they were very successful. People really got a lot out of them. They didn't pay anything. They wrote in, and we chose to give sponsorships to a certain number of them. And I would do that again.
Yeah, I love that. Genevieve, really appreciate you sharing your story, your passion with us today, and some of the lessons that you've learned in your transition from a corporate TV executive into the not-for-profit space and now into speaker as well. It's been fantastic having you on the show. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Guys, if you want to learn more about Genevieve, you can find her at GenevievePiturrO.com. The same on LinkedIn. I don't imagine there are too many Genevieve Piturros on LinkedIn. So you can find Genevieve, mention the show, and I know Genevieve will be happy to give you a 1-hour consultation and help you maybe find some of your purpose and how you might be able to do that in your marketing as well.
Right.
Genevieve, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for this invitation, Tim. I loved it.
And guys, if you've enjoyed today's show, please like, share, and subscribe. We would love to see you for our next episode, and each and every week. We'll catch you again real soon. Thanks for joining us.